Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, after 2 years of fighting, Israeli hostages are home and a ceasefire is in place. We'll have reaction from some Kentuckians. And 16 are presumed dead in a Tennessee explosion. We'll have the latest on the difficult recovery and identification efforts.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. President Donald Trump was in Israel on Monday as people from throughout the world celebrated the release of Israeli hostages from Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and the new ceasefire deal. WYMT's Amelia Lee spoke with the Kentucky Jewish Federation, who say the release could not have come soon enough after just more than 2 years of fighting in the Middle East.
For Rabbi Shlomo Litzvin, the release of Israeli prisoners could not come soon enough. The chairman of the Kentucky Jewish Council says he watched the war unfold in the Middle East since October 7th, 2023.
First it was rocket fire, then someone said an invasion, which sounded crazy. And as the day went on, we found out about the horrors of October 7th. 2 years later, on that very same festival of joy, we are celebrating our brothers coming home.
With President Donald Trump in Israel on Monday, delivering a speech.
This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Rabbi Litzvin says it's thanks to a miracle by God that this release happened. But he also expressed gratitude to the president and even Kentucky lawmakers whose, quote, efforts helped secure the return of the hostages.
And our Creator endowed us with rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To see life and liberty be returned to the country that most shares our values, I think should be a celebration day for all Americans to see a step taken towards a war ending.
Many people, like Muhammad Ahmad with Northern Kentucky for Palestine, are now hoping for a second opportunity for peace in the Middle East after a failed ceasefire deal earlier this year.
And even if there was a complete end to the genocide today, that doesn't stop our demands for a free Palestine. We want to continue ending the apartheid, ending the occupation, granting the right of return that has been long overdue for over 77 years. And so this is just one step in a long journey to liberation for us.
Some say peace is still in its first stages as questions continue between both groups. Amelia Lee, WYMT Mountain News.
President Trump is back at the White House today. All 20 remaining Israeli hostages were reunited with their families, but CBS News reports 24 bodies are still in Gaza as of this morning. We have more about this on our website, WYMT.com, and the WYMT News app. A University of Louisville student group is being temporarily suspended from campus after a protest Monday. The Louisville Students for Justice in Palestine group says they want the university to divest from Israel. This viewer video shows students believed to be part of the group building an encampment in front of Ekstrom Library yesterday. A statement from the university's president said the group was warned about being disruptive and not being allowed to set up encampments on property. Students peacefully left after being warned by campus police.
We have plenty of sunshine again throughout eastern Kentucky. This is a scene earlier from Buffalo Mountain. Look at this. Wall-to-wall sunshine was the name of the game. Not a cloud in the sky, making for a beautiful Tuesday throughout the area. Numbers for today made it into the upper 60s and low 70s. Somerset made it to 75, Williamsburg 72, 64 Wise, 62 in Clintwood, as well as Pikeville. As we go throughout the next several hours, going into the first part of your Wednesday morning, we'll see temperatures in the upper 40s, low 50s, by 7 a.m. We'll go to the low 70s by the 4 o'clock hour with plenty of sunshine, clear skies by 7 p.m. with temperatures in the mid 60s. Hope you enjoy this night's weather because there is a change coming up somewhere in the 7-day forecast. And we'll talk about that in the first alert forecast coming up in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. It has been more than 4 years since Christopher and Gracie Hager were shot and killed outside an apartment building they owned in Richmond. Police say Thomas Burrell was behind their deaths, later burning the building down. Burrell was indicted last year and eventually ruled unfit to stand trial. Fast forward to July 2024, and the case was reopened in Madison Circuit Court. And today, he had another tense hearing in a packed courtroom.
The way my uncle put it, it's almost like we're we're on life without parole. It's almost like we're the ones suffering. We're the ones that are just sitting around waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting versus, the perpetrator.
Burrell's defense team is requesting a psychiatric evaluation. The judge set a review date for January 8th. We now know the names of the victims in the deadly explosion at the site of an Accurate Energetic Systems facility in Middle Tennessee. 16 people are presumed dead as a result of the explosion. Officials say the release of the victims' names does not indicate that all remains have been identified, with the investigation still active.
We still have a lot of things inside the scene that are very active. We still have a very good operational plan. We're moving forward. We're still at a snail's pace.
The sheriff says crews are still in the process of collecting samples and trying to make confirmations so they can start talking to families individually. Leaders on Capitol Hill say this could be the longest government shutdown of all time. The current record is 34 days, set during the first Trump administration. The current Trump administration is following through on threats to permanently fire federal employees. WYMT Washington correspondent Brendan Cullerton has the latest on negotiations from Capitol Hill.
Republicans say Democrats can stop President Donald Trump from firing federal workers by signing on to their spending plan. Democrats believe they can stop the president in court. House Speaker Mike Johnson says federal workers without paychecks have Senate Democrats to blame for the government shutdown, as they have not passed a GOP funding package.
Over 3 weeks ago, the House passed that bill, and you all know the details of it. It is completely clean. There are no policy changes, no partisan riders, no gimmicks or tricks at all.
Before the Senate teed up an 8th vote to end the shutdown, Democrats doubled down on demands for Republicans to add health care funding to the plan, accusing them of creating a crisis.
The American people know that Republicans have shut the government down because of their unwillingness to provide health care to everyday Americans, working class Americans, and middle class Americans.
Speaker Johnson says those health care demands are unserious and says some of those Medicaid cuts were made for a reason.
They should not be riding the wagon and taking Medicaid that is intended for vulnerable populations, the elderly, disabled, and young pregnant women, for example, and not young able-bodied men without dependents who are playing video games.
Republicans say Democrats are forcing President Donald Trump's hand to permanently fire employees. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen says those firings are illegal and Democrats will prove it in court.
When they tell you that the shutdown is making them fire these federal employees, do not believe it for a moment. That is a big lie. It is a big, fat lie.
President Trump says the Pentagon will shift funds around to ensure members of the military receive paychecks. The government has already begun ending payments to most federal workers. In Washington, I'm Brendan Cullerton.
Ford will be cutting back production at its Kentucky truck plant after a fire at an aluminum supplier's facility. The Wall Street Journal reports starting this week, Ford is not producing its 3-row SUVs, the Expedition and Lincoln Navigator, at the truck plant. The SUV pause is set to last a week, according to a memo sent to workers. The message did not give an exact reason for the pause, but it comes after aluminum supplier Novelis's plant in upstate New York had a fire last month. One of the country's leading banks will make a major investment in companies considered critical for U.S. national security. JP Morgan Chase said it will invest $10 billion in defense contractors and artificial intelligence businesses. The bank's chief executive says the U.S. has become too reliant on countries overseas to produce critical minerals, products, and manufacturing. JP Morgan will put financial muscle behind U.S. efforts to produce items like computer chips and electric vehicles stateside. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the American Heart Association is working to improve emergency response and education in eastern Kentucky. Hear how.
Temperatures today made into the upper 60s and low 70s, but rain and storm chances are in the forecast. Details in the First Alert forecast coming up in a few minutes.